here. The wee purple bastard is back. And really? Fender, come on. The jack is okay. It's probably maybe already replaced, but problem with the power tubes. So let's have a look. No. 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 Ah. No. Oh. No. No. Nah. Ah. Fuck you, Fender. Oh! Yes! Woo! Ah. Ah. Okay, it's looking quite neat for the moment, but still there's a wee bit of pubic tobacco. Let's have a closer look at the board. Looking inside this Pro Junior, it's immediately clear what has happened. The tube pins have heated up so much that the solder has melted and they've all become detached from the traces. And this socket is the one for the EL84. There's another one for an EL84, and right next to it the preamp sockets seem to be okay. And the current that didn't make it through to the tube has to be dissipated somewhere, and this is the first dropping resistor. That's 2K7, and that's the one who took all the heat. And here are the much despised IC filter caps. Well, one big problem is that this output transformer is just flapping in the breeze. And I think it's a replacement output transformer because there are other holes that they used to go through. Well, you can tell that this loose transformer has really caused some strain on this one lead, but it seems to be intact. Luckily, the others are led around the transformer into a hole there, so they are doing fine. But I should just fix this immediately. Okay, nurse, bring on the anesthetic. Let's clean up first and check out these traces. I'm using some contact cleaner to clean the board. Really hard to tell how bad the damage is. Let's get the continuity check. Gives a sonic bleep when there's connectivity. So I'm gonna check whether this trace at all still connects to, it goes, yeah, that is good. And this point here should connect to, for example, that's good. And this trace, not the tube pin which is loose, but the trace itself, yeah, it doesn't connect to the other ones. So that's good. This is not used, so that doesn't matter. And this one, yeah, Well, this is another unconnected pin. This one, yeah, that's not connected either. So, but we will just try to check if the sockets are okay, whether the metal inside the sockets connects to the pins on the outside, because if they don't, it's not much use resoldering them. Yeah, you know the drill. 4 PCB screws need to be removed, and then all the controls and the washers and nuts from the controls and the jack. Well, great news, I was able to salvage the screw which was the grounding point on the chassis to secure the output transformer. It really fits and it screws into the chassis like that. So I'll find something else to tighten the ground connection. That's not so much under strain as this big and heavy output transformer, which is not original. And that's why it matches a speaker which is 16 ohms, which is not the standard output impedance for a Pro Junior. So the chassis is out. I will be able to replace this burnout resistor, which is just behind that cap. As you can see, the pots have already been replaced by normal CTS pots, not board mounted as they originally were. And I think I'm going to do the same to the input jack, which is in plastic and it has a few cracks already. And if I can find a grounding switch, I will put it in. Well, let's just keep our focus, or let me just keep my focus and simply replace this 2K7 resistor in the power section. Okay, when I measured the resistor, it's just as if I wouldn't have connected my multimeter. There is no connection inside, infinite resistance. So this one is toast, as you can well see. Well, I've got the PCB for the tubes out anyway. I'm gonna reflow the solder on the preamp tubes as well. I did this already for this preamp tube and I still have to do this one. Okay, the first of the old filter caps is out. And there's of course some glue to be conquered. I'll be putting in these very nice F&Ts. Well, most of these big filter caps are glued to the board with hot glue. You can see the hot glue over there. And it's not so easy to get the capacitors out, especially when the PCB is crammed like this. But the way to go about it is just to take your soldering iron and scorch across the capacitor, which will burn the plastic foil, which is in fact the packaging. And then you can just take it out if you clip the leads, just like this. And then that comes right off. Yeah, I really need both hands for this. The old IC capacitors have been replaced by FNTs, and I had this 47 microfarad cap that I used to replace the two caps of 22 microfarads, and save us some room on the board. So I would want to give it a test run now after I've connected this ground lead back to the chassis in some way. I should get a different screw because I repurposed that screw to put in the output transformer. I was very keen on switching out this jack, but I was looking last night and I'm completely out of self-shorting jacks, so I'll have to order some. But the input jack is holding out okay, so maybe we'll replace that at a later stage. I'm pretty sure these capacitors have been changed as well. They don't look original, but I may be wrong. It's a very early Pro Junior, and if you, just to give you some examples, here is the 1.5K resistor on the cathode of the first preamp, and there should be, according to later versions of the schematic, they added a cathode bypass cap, which is indicated here as C22, and that's not on the board on this very early Pro Junior. So, but we're not going to change anything. But it's easy to tell from the schematic. You see all these components were drawn out originally: R1, R3, C2, R5, 6, 7, R4, and then at a later stage they added some components like the C22 and the C24. These are later additions, and I think the same for C24 is also not present in this amp. Yes, when trying to put in the tubes again, I realized that this V4 socket, it really needs some retensioning of the tube pins, because of course due to the heat they expanded and they need a little pinch. So I'm just gonna go in there with a very small screwdriver like this one, and give them a little pinch. Okay, the tubes are back in place. The sockets are tightened a bit. I don't have a speaker connected because just want to measure the high voltages on these capacitor nodes, and then we might connect a speaker if that's okay. But I just want to see whether all the tubes, especially the output tubes, this one and this one, are working okay, seeing filament voltage and conducting. Because if that's not the case, we'll have to take a step back and consider some other options. Yes. Okay. It's unbelievable how all of the voltages, especially on the preamp stages, exactly match the schematic. There is some slight difference in the high power on the output transformer, where Fender says 316 volts, 316, and I have like 323 and 325, but then again, here I have a slightly higher B plus, 327 instead of 319, but then here it's like 290 and 227. It's very close. Let's hook it up to a speaker. Well, it is working, but I get a lot of noise and some high frequency oscillation. But after giving it some thought and some coffee, I'm beginning to think that maybe it's because I have my shit dangling out like this. And these preamp tubes are quite close to the high voltages here. And the same is going on with the pots who are not properly grounded when I take them off of the chassis. I don't know, I will give it another try. Still, I might change these power tubes. I get these from all my friends, Vox users, who after like a month or two think their EL84s are burned out. So they give them to me for free, but they're perfectly okay. So I might swap these out for other ones. Some more here and some more in the tube stash. So let's try and do a demo still. Even the bias is spot on, even though some of the components here in the schematic are not in my amp, or in this amp, the R30. I don't see it. And I only see like this voltage divider setup here. So I can measure it in between these two 20K resistors. And that was 10 volts, 86. I want to bottom it up and put it together again, but a little bit smaller. Okay, I found something in my stash, just nut and bolt that is at least more secure than just into the chassis, because it wasn't holding out and I couldn't tighten it like that. Much better. Well, there was one last problem, and as you can see, they mounted proper pots on the chassis here, which is a great idea. But if you look under the pot casing, you can see that if you tighten the pot real tight, it sort of squeezes the wires and it would ground out the signal onto the pot casing. This was what I had the first moment I turned it on, and I had like no gain at all and no volume. So I might take the pot out and put some protective tape, or I'm not gonna open it, or something else between it, because I'm not gonna open it up again and resolder those wires. Okay, here's the volume pot, and you can see how much of the bare wire is exposed, and when the amp is assembled, the pot is just touching that. Look at all this crud. Yuckis. Ew. Okay, I'm ready to remove this plastic input jack, and I put in a jack cable just to be able to identify which one of the two contacts is the tip. That will be the signal on the jack. And so I connect it to this jack, and let's see, it's this one, the right one. This will be connected to ground. So when there's nothing plugged in, everything connects to ground. At this point there is no connectivity, only this connects. But as soon as I take it off, you see that these 2 points, or these, are continuous. So the signal contact is grounded when there's nothing plugged in to avoid extra noise. Here's a typical Fender switch-in or shortened jack. When you connect your jack plug, it goes in and connects to the tip and lifts the signal, which is on the tip of your jack, from this little blade here, which you should also connect to ground. So when there's nothing connected to ground, nothing connected to the jack, the signal path inside your amp is effectively grounded. New input jack. Let's put it together one more time and see if it still works. Well, all seems to be good. We got sound. If we touch the strings, we got less noise, but of course I had this beautiful tube amp, Dr. preamp tube. So let's put that in. Look at that old Ruby tube. It's just a phase inverter. They're okay, but this one. Well, considering the quality and status of the tube sockets, I couldn't let this one go without some tube retainers, and I think the Pro Junior and the Blues Junior as well originally come with these string retainers to keep these tall EL84s in place. So that's certainly an improvement, because they tend to drop out.